Foundation.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Hewitt Shaw, the president of the City Club's Board of Directors. Today, in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic, we are honored to welcome to our Friday Forum podium the Taoiseach, or Prime Minister of Ireland, Enda Kenny. As Jim Foster mentioned a few minutes ago, the City Club is celebrating this year its 100th anniversary. 93 years ago, in 1919, in the midst of the Irish War of Independence, the City Club welcomed to this podium Eamon de Valera, who went on later to serve as Taoiseach of Ireland and who in that City Club speech advocated for the independent nationhood of Ireland it ultimately achieved and under which Mr. Kenny serves today. We are indeed proud of that shared history with today's speaker. That shared history is a splendid example of the City Club's mission over these past 100 years to provide a forum for open and free expression of the important ideas of the day. I am certain that the Prime Minister will continue that fine tradition today. Today's forum is dedicated to the memory of another notable Irishman in the 100th-year history of the City Club, Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell came to Cleveland as an 18-year-old and went on to a distinguished career as a Cleveland State history professor and co-founder of its Institute of Urban Studies, a candidate for mayor, the founder of the Irish Archives Society, and, most significantly for us, a president of the City Club and the author of the definitive history of the City Club, Freedom's Forum. We are very pleased to partner in today's forum, as well as many in the past years, with the Cleveland Clinic. We all know of the clinic's reputation as a leader in medical service and innovation, but its collaboration with the City Club in these forums exemplifies its broader commitment to our city and our region. Our sincere thanks to the Cleveland Clinic for its support. And now, to formally introduce today's forum speaker, I will turn the podium over to another important person of Irish descent, Dr. Toby Cosgrove, Chief Executive Officer of the Cleveland Clinic.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to all of you today. We are proud to host the City Club today at the Cleveland Clinic. Ireland has a special relationship with the United States, with more than 45 million people in the United States claiming Irish descent. Similarly, the Cleveland Clinic has a long relationship with Ireland. Our founder, George Cryle, was an honorary member of Ireland's Royal College of Surgeons, as am I. Like other European countries, Ireland is struggling through an economic crisis. Currently, Ireland is improving their position as a trade partner in the world market, and their future looks ever brighter. Leading the way is our speaker today, Taoiseach Enda Kenny. You may recognize him on the cover of this week's European Time magazine. It's the only time I have ever seen Time magazine, Time being written in green. Taoiseach is one of Ireland's most successful political leaders. With 36 years of experience, he is the longest-serving living member of Dáil, Ireland's lower house. Born in County Mayo, he attended St. Patrick's College of Education in Dublin, University College in Galway. His father was a prominent athlete, politician, and member of Dáil. In 1975, Taoiseach was elected to his late father's seat and has retained it as every election since that time. His accomplishments include reviving Dublin's annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. In 1995, he was a key member of the Rainbow Coalition government and served as Minister of Tourism. Taoiseach was elected to leadership in the Fine Gael party in 2002, where he worked to redefine it as the party with a progressive center. In 2004, he was elected vice president of the European People's Party of the European Parliament. In the election of 2011, he led his party to a decisive victory. It won 76 seats, the most in its history. With this success, he became Taoiseach. Enda Kenny inherited multiple crises. Today, he's leading Ireland's recovery through a program of taxes, tax hikes, cost-cutting, and public sector restructuring. He cut his own pay and the pay of his ministers. He maintained an agreement with the public sector unions to lower cost. He bargained with the EU for an interest rate reduction on his loans. The plan is working. Ireland has grown its GDP by 1.4% in 2011 and made a successful return to the bond market. Enda Kenny, other Irishmen of the same ilk. Enda Kenny made headlines around the world last year by withdrawing his ambassador from the Vatican over the handling of the Irish abuse cases. His speech defending the action was hailed by Maureen Dow at the New York Times as breathtaking. He is married with 3 teenage children. He's a hiker, a hill climber, and a golfer. In 2003, he climbed Kilimanjaro for charity. In addition to politics, he's been a school teacher and a successful soccer coach. His heroes include Michael Collins, hero of Irish independence, and singer Bruce Springsteen. His plan for Ireland and its economy has been hailed as a model for European recovery. We are very honored today to welcome Taoiseach Enda Kenny.
Good Maghav. That means thank you in Irish. Thank you, Toby, and 10 out of 10 for your pronunciation of Taoiseach, which is an Irish Gaelic word for leader or for chieftain. I'll sign the magazine for you before I leave. They don't come around very often. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say that I'm delighted to be here at the City Club, and thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted too to speak to the Irish family scattered across the United States. And I'm pleased to bring some good news from home. Because addressing you today, I'm only too well aware that I follow in the footsteps of many illustrious figures over the years who've had the privilege of sharing their thoughts and their experiences from the podium of the City Club in Cleveland. I'm also aware that the City Club is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, Cogorgeous, which means congratulations. I'd also like to take this opportunity to congratulate and pay tribute to all of those who over the years established the City Club's reputation as a citadel of free speech. Since its incorporation on October the 28th, 1912, the club has gained a reputation for openness and inclusivity, for welcoming people of different beliefs, of different causes, of different social backgrounds, as it has for its commitment to the well-being of the city of Cleveland and of all its citizens. The club's longevity and its well-earned reputation as a bastion of free speech is a tribute to the caliber of the people who have been involved here for over 100 years. The world in 1912 was a very different place, and yet throughout all of those changes, the Club of Cleveland has been a constant. The famous Irish poet William Butler Yeats wrote once, "Of our conflicts with others, we make rhetoric. Of our conflicts with ourselves, we make poetry." Your century-long life has indeed been visited and punctuated by conflict, often on a global scale. And as it has, the citadel of free speech has been blessed with marvellous rhetoric, some of it poetry. And when you look at the list of speakers, from Theodore Roosevelt to Archbishop Tutu, Bobby Kennedy to Rosa Parks, you can see that these were not people just of fine words, but of fine courage, of passion, and of ideas. Their voices echo still in our changed and changing world. Their owners part of the human chain that connects and comforts and challenges the people of this city and the people of the world for over a century. So today, I'm humbled indeed to follow in their footsteps. The Irish and those of Irish descent have been involved for a very long time with the City Club. I know you mentioned Thomas Campbell, born in Enniskillen, County Fermanagh, author, academic, community leader, who served as president of the City Club and was instrumental in its opening its doors to women. Thomas founded the Irish American Archives Society and was deeply involved in the Irish American community here in Cleveland. The story of Thomas Campbell is the story of so many Irishmen who've made the indelible mark on this city and on this country. Tomorrow, I hope to visit the Irish Cultural Garden, this beautiful space being representative of the historically strong Irish presence in this city, spreading out from the river. Of course, as a Mayo man, I know only too well the strong bonds between Cleveland and Mayo, and between Cleveland and Achill in particular. From the first emigrants who have been tied by bonds of deep and abiding friendship who came from our shores to your shores. Indeed, I understand that discussions are ongoing about the twinning of Cuyahoga County and my own native county of Mayo, which can only be beneficial both ways. I wish them success. When my government came to office just 18 months ago, Ireland was in deep crisis. 250,000 jobs lost in the private sector, money hemorrhaging out of banks, and confidence disappeared in so many areas. Our task was great, our task was urgent. It was necessary to undertake 4 major tasks immediately: stabilize our finances, rebuild our economy, restore our international reputation, and above all, make a vital start at getting our people back to work. I'm glad to report to you that we have made steady progress in each of these enormous tasks. While Ireland's been on a very difficult economic journey in recent years, we are now clearly moving steadily in the right direction. The hard sacrifices that have been made by the Irish people are delivering results. Government borrowing is falling steadily, and we've achieved and indeed beaten the deficit targets that we have set for ourselves. Ireland's competitiveness vis-à-vis our trading partners has improved by over 20% since 2009, and consequently exports are now well in excess of pre-crisis levels, rising last year by over 5.1%. And last year also saw a return to growth of the Irish economy, with GDP increasing by 1.4%. It actually proves that an export-oriented Irish economy can grow even during a period of unprecedented budgetary consolidation. And that strong performance means that for the first time in 10 years, the first time in a decade, our balance of payments with the rest of the world actually moved into surplus, and it's expected to remain there over the coming years. This is most encouraging and means that as a whole, Ireland's paying its way. From an unprecedented recession in 2008 to 2010, the overall economy has returned to modest growth. This economic progress has restored international confidence in our country. Confidence from a business perspective, from an economic perspective, and a political perspective. Yields on the Irish government bonds have fallen from over 14% last year to below 5% today. And deposits are returning to our banks. Market assessment clearly recognises this, but we are not and cannot be complacent about the challenges that lie ahead. This will depend in part upon developments within the European Union and indeed in the broader international community, including, of course, the United States of America, especially the economy of the US and our partners. You see, for Ireland to be successful, we need to see economic stability and a return to growth and job creation in Europe, most particularly in the Eurozone. That is the 17 countries within the 27 where the euro is the common currency. Since the crisis broke, Europe has taken a number of important decisions at leadership level. We put in place the mechanisms to support countries that get into difficulties. And as you're aware, a number of countries are in bailout programs. We've adopted tougher and tighter rules to ensure budgetary discipline. In June last, we made a number of crucial decisions which are now in the process of being implemented. We adopted a compact for growth and jobs. In effect, this aims at completing the process of what we call the single market throughout Europe that has created so many economic opportunities for Ireland and European businesses. And taking this work forward will be a priority area for us when we assume the presidency of the European Union, which, as you know, rotates between the countries on a 6-monthly basis. We take up that on the first half of next year. And for an island like Ireland, trade is obviously a crucial engine for growth. And developing relations with the Union's key strategic partners, including the United States, is a key priority and will be a key priority. Transatlantic trade and transatlantic investment in both directions constitutes the largest economic relationship on the globe. That link is vital to both the European and to American economies, especially given the crucial importance to both of us of growth and of recovery. I believe very strongly that agreement on a comprehensive trade agreement between the United States and the European Union would take this relationship to a new level. Therefore, this will be an ambition of mine to make as much progress as we can during our presidency, following the receipt of high-level documentation about this later this year. I see phenomenal potential in the next decade and beyond if this is to be realised. Last June also, at a crucial meeting of the European Council, which is the meeting of all the leaders of the European Union, all 27, made a very important decision and a vital agreement on the need to break the toxic link between bank debt and sovereign debt and to enable the permanent European stability mechanism to directly recapitalise European banks. I've been an advocate for a very long time that this was an essential step, that therefore the clear and the unequivocal decisions made by the highest governing body of the European Union, which is the European Council of the Heads of Government, aimed at stabilising the Eurozone, be implemented in full and as soon as possible. I have to say that I'm absolutely resolute that this cannot happen quickly enough. Ireland's bank debt, Ireland's bank-related debt, has been a critical factor in our financial difficulties. And our European colleagues recognised this in June when they committed to working with us to examine how best to make our debt position more sustainable. And we are therefore currently involved in intensive and technical discussions with our European partners and with the Troika, which is the International Monetary Fund, the European Commission and the ECB, to ensure that that commitment actually brings about results. That would make our task so much more easy in the time ahead. Right now, the euro area needs a success story, and Ireland can be that success story. But one fundamental is that the importance of the decision taken on the 29th of June by the European leaders be implemented and be seen to be implemented, because that restores confidence to people in politics and restores an opportunity to demonstrate decisive and effective leadership. Throughout this European crisis and the Eurozone crisis, there have been highlighted the shortcomings in the designs for what we call the original economic and monetary union within the European Union. And the President, therefore, of the European Council, Mr. Herman Van Rompuy, is currently investigating how best this might be achieved, and he's going to bring his recommendations forward to us before the end of this year. Now, just as in the United States, employment and unemployment, in particular, is of great importance to your people and to ours. I note the fall in the unemployment rate in the United States with the recent publication of the statistics. Ireland's is 14.7, 14.8, which is much too high, and therefore protecting jobs and creating job opportunities is a key priority for my government. We have to and we must get our people back to work, as it concerns me and it grieves me to see the return in places of enforced emigration where the young, with all the talent for the future, leave to take those talents to other lands. Therefore, we have a responsibility at government level to see that the doors of opportunity for business and career opportunities are opened in the people's interests. The action plan that we produced for jobs contains a range of measures to improve that business environment, to boost and to keep jobs, to bring about a sustainable economic growth, to remove red tape and bureaucracy, and to focus on non-taxation of employment and work so that people can see the opportunities that exist for them. The action plan sets out a whole series of measures over the next number of years to create 100,000 jobs by 2016. And yes, of course, unfortunately, as in so many other countries, unemployment rates remain too high. But there are signs of stabilisation in the job market in Ireland. It's been a long and difficult road. It is a long and difficult road to full employment, but we believe that we are equal to that challenge, both as a people and as a government working with our people. Restoring competitiveness is a key element of this jobs action plan. We are already seeing significant improvement in that regard. The IMD World Competitiveness Rankings show that Ireland is now back in the top 20 for competitiveness. We are number 1 in the world for the availability of skilled labour. We are second in the world for productivity and efficiency. We are rated number 1 for flexibility and adaptability when faced with new challenges. And we top the rankings on globalisation and reform. And we intend to continue to build on those platforms to make further improvement. So we've made particular progress in the area of competitiveness. Irish unit labour costs are expected to fall by a cumulative 16.5% between the period 2009 to 2013. In contrast, labour unit costs throughout the Eurozone area have been close to 6.7% of an increase over the same period. Also, Irish inflation rates are amongst the lowest in the euro area, and they're forecast to remain below the euro area average for the period 2012-2013, which will further improve our relative competitiveness. And that improved competitiveness is why we continue to perform so well in attracting foreign direct investment, with particular resonance for the United States. President Clinton spoke at an economic conference in February in New York, and he made the point to American investors that when they look at Ireland, they see a country with the best demographics in Europe for the next 25 years. And when you add that facility to the opportunities that exist in tax, technology, track record and talent, in his words, you'd want to be nuts not to invest in a country like that. I agree with President Clinton. We have retained our traditional strengths, which has brought us so many leading international companies to Ireland. 8 out of the top U.S. ICT companies are there. 8 out of the top 10 global pharmaceutical companies are there. 15 of the world's top 20 medical device companies are in Ireland. More than 50% of the world's leading financial services firms are there. And the leading firms that have been born on the internet, like Google and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Yahoo, they're all there together in Ireland. I could give you a very long list of why it's so attractive to be there. But as I said, I rely in the main upon what the chief executive said to me from California, which he said, we moved our primary product to your country, not just because of your tax, talent, technology and track record, not because you're the only country that speaks English in the Eurozone, but because of the passion of your young people in rising to whatever the challenge that is set to them. And that's an advantage of Ireland. And that's an advantage that as a small country with the flexibility and the capacity to be creative enough to know where the waves of change are coming in the next decade and beyond, to have our educational structure be able to deal with those requirements and those demands where the jobs are going to be created in areas that haven't even been thought of yet. To date, over 1,000 multinational corporations have chosen Ireland as their strategic European base. And last year again was a record year for investment into the country. We're on track to break all records in 2012, and a very significant proportion of that comes from the United States. And I might say that when it was my privilege to come here, shortly after being elected, and to speak to American business, what they want is decisiveness and clarity and a horizon against which they can plan. They need to know that there will be no change in the corporate tax rates in Ireland, and there won't be. And once they see that road ahead, they can then plan with decisiveness what it is they want to do in terms of investment. And we're very happy to have restored that level of confidence with American investors, which have been so important to us over the years. Now, a recent report of the Irish-US economic relationship showed that Ireland was the 3rd most preferred European destination for US foreign direct investment outflows last year, which accounted, as you know, for $30.5 billion US dollars. The ties that bind Ireland and the United States become ever stronger, and we must remember that trade between our countries is also a two-way street. Those who came to Cleveland and Cuyahoga County in the beginning from our country came never to return, with very few exceptions. It's different these days because Irish business is coming from Ireland to the United States, and the activities of Irish firms in the US remains very substantial. Only 11 other countries in the world have a higher investment stake in the United States than Ireland has. Our FDI stock in the US was worth around $25 billion US dollars in 2011. Irish affiliates employ approximately 120,000 US workers, with a corresponding figure of around 107,000 Irish workers employed directly by US affiliates. As I said, our 12.5% corporation tax remains and will continue to remain at the heart of our strategy to continue to attract foreign direct investment into our country. We've also taken a range of measures aimed at further deepening and developing the impact of foreign direct investment. We've made it more attractive for senior executives to relocate to Ireland. Our enterprise agencies, Enterprise Ireland and the IDA, are also working together to maximise the benefits and learning for smaller firms so that they can learn from our cadre, if you like, of leading multinational companies, Irish SMEs, and from FDI. This morning down in Montgomery County in Pennsylvania, I had the privilege of opening a new centre for Zenith Technologies, who provide very sophisticated solutions for the pharmaceutical business in particular. That kind of collaboration is really key. And that's the way that, in part, we can achieve what I've set out on my ambitions for my country. And they are that by 2016, when we celebrate the centenary of the first fledgling steps of those who rose and fought and died on the way to Ireland achieving its economic and political independence, that we prove that we are the best country in the world in which to do business, the best place in which to raise a family, and indeed the best place in which to grow old with a sense of dignity and respect. We know that our diaspora is every bit as committed as we are to ensuring a full and an early recovery. In fact, while we never say this publicly, we have had a long-term policy of colonisation. We've only 4.5 million at home. We've got 70 million of a family abroad. So whether they're in Australia or Asia or South America, the United States, Britain, or wherever, they're all now tied together by the phenomenon of digital connection. And they know whether in Seattle or in Auckland or Tierra del Fuego or Sakhalin Island or London or Birmingham or Cleveland or Cuyahoga or wherever, they know where home is and they know the connections that can be made now. We've also set up a register of advocates from our global Irish network. These are influential people who travel the world on business and who are constantly in a position to promote Ireland and also to explain to people the circumstances and the progress that our country is making. We're supporting the Connect Ireland initiative, which leverages our diaspora for the purposes of job creation. This application of referral marketing to job creation is one of the first schemes of its kind globally. I expect the significant benefits to flow from that. It means, in fact, somebody working in Brazil or Argentina or Australia or China or wherever, if they decide to say there's something here that we could make in Ireland or manufacture in Ireland, and they send it through the Connect Ireland system, there's a reward for those who initiate the movement if sustainable jobs actually result. There have been thousands of queries and companies lined up to see whether this can become a reality. Intuitive, creative, imaginative, visionary, it's all part of the capacity and the potential of the diaspora to help at home. I'm aware that many of you here have a great sense of pride in tracing your ancestry and your proud ancestry back to Ireland. And just a few weeks ago, I was proud to welcome over 35,000 Irish Americans to Dublin. They came for a single sporting event, the game between Notre Dame and the Navy. Some of them stayed for a week, some stayed for a fortnight, some are still there, some will never come back. They tell me they spent 100 million. I'm not too sure. I think it was more than that, actually. They say it was the biggest ever mass movement of U.S. citizens overseas for a sporting event. And what a game it was. And next year, you're going to have the opportunity to come yourselves, if you wish. Because 2013 is going to be the year of the gathering. The gathering is an opportunity for the Irish family to come home. Not all 70 million together, but sometime during the year, be it for an occasion in the local town, townland, parish, or whatever. It could be a family occasion, it could be a reunion, it could be a sporting event, it could also be business, because we'd like to tie business opportunities and trade missions into this. I met this morning with the Governor Corbett, who will hopefully lead a trade delegation to Ireland sometime at the end of summer next year, with whatever companies come from Pennsylvania. I'm sure the same will apply here from Cleveland. So whether it's culture, music, or dance, or literature, or food, or sport, or business, or just talk, you're welcome. Example, I wrote a letter to a woman in Phoenix, Arizona recently because I was asked to. I was asked to write to her because she's 70 years young and celebrated her birthday. And I explained to her about the gathering. And she wrote back and she said, well, why not? What she did was say that she's going to celebrate her birthday in style. And she's booked 80 people of our friends to come to Ireland for 2 weeks next year. So, you do the same. A city club, you're looking good at 100, and I hope that 100 years from now, another Taoiseach may have the opportunity to stand here. I know that with all the work that the Cleveland Clinic can do, they can't guarantee that I'll be back in 100 years. But I'm reminded of the words of Patrick Kavanagh. The birds sang on the trees. It was 100 years from now, and I was dead, but someone else was listening to them. And someone else, your descendants, men and women, you will never know them, will be listening to somebody else speaking at the Cleveland Club. And the Taoiseach will say, you know, a century ago, Ireland had it tough, but they were used to dealing with adversity, and they dealt with their challenges because there were men and women who were prepared to make the necessary decisions and to make them, in paraphrasing President Kennedy, not because they were easy, but because they were hard. And they will say, we suffered, yes, but like the generations of Irish before us, we came through, and that together we recovered and built our country for the generation that came behind us. 2 years ago, I was surrounded by, I would say, 50 Achill people in Westport. And they said, you'll be elected Taoiseach, you must give a commitment to come to Cleveland. So here I am, honouring my word. And let me say, finally, it's a great privilege to stand at this podium and speak to the club here in Cleveland. I'm very proud of the work that you do, very proud of what you've done over the many years in between. My job, in partnership with you, in Ireland's case, is to give our country back to our people, restore our economic independence, and allow our young people to carry on a very solid platform for the future. I'm absolutely confident that with the capacity and the ability we have, they will carry forward the future brand of excellence and competence for our country that we all desire for them. So, Garamila Mahagiv, thank you for your patience, for your understanding. I'll take any questions you have now, but do not ask me whether Mayo are going to win the All-Ireland football final next year. We lost against Donegal this time, and the grief is deep, but we're dealing with that too. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a very special Friday forum featuring the Prime Minister of Ireland, Taoiseach Enda Kenny. We will return to the Taoiseach momentarily for the traditional City Club questions. Please formulate questions now, and remember that questions should be brief and to the point and should be in the form of a question. Holding the microphones today are City Club Program Director Carrie Miller and 100th Anniversary Assistant Director Betsy Wallace. We welcome all of you here and all of those listening to 90.3 WCPN, Idea Stream, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIC PBS Idea Stream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC Bank. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. Closed captioning of our program is made possible by Nordstrom Corporation. We would like to thank the many generous supporters who have purchased tables today. There are too many to announce here. Please refer to your program for the list. Today is the Thomas F. and Marguerite Campbell Endowed Forum. Joining us today at the head table are Mr. Campbell's widow, Peg Campbell, and her friend and fellow City Club historian, Dennis Dooley. Will you both please stand to be recognized? Thank you for your support. Now we would like to turn to our panel to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. The first question, please.
Mr. Prime Minister, one of the great traditions of the City Club is to ask challenging questions of prominent speakers. So here goes. Sometimes we can learn something from history. My question relates to World War II and why it was that during that entire war, during the overrunning of Europe by Nazis, Ireland remained neutral, would not support the Allied powers. And if you were Prime Minister, would you have had that same policy?
Well, I can't speak for Mr. De Valera, who spoke from this podium in 1919 and who was then Taoiseach as a predecessor of mine. There was a deal of dissent from a small number of politicians about staying out of the war formally. But you should know that thousands of Irish people fought on the Allied side, fought in the British Army, fought in Tobruk, fought right across the main battlefields of World War II, as they did in World War I, when they fell in Flanders Field and the Somme and so on. When the people came back from World War I, those who survived were not recognised. In fact, it was only last year when the Queen of England came to Ireland, the first visit from a reigning monarch in 100 years, that she recognised that people who fought for king and country and the freedom of small nations had a part to play in the building of the European Union and the fight that took place. In fact, those who fought in World War II and participated in the British Army, in the British Armed Forces and the Allied Forces, were pardoned only this year and given honourable recognition for that by the government which I lead. Of course, many Irish people also fought in the American forces in many fields of battle from World War II right through to Afghanistan at the moment. So would one have done things differently? Very difficult, as I wasn't there to understand the circumstances of the decision that was taken then. We might not have been lined up formally, but we certainly participated very strongly in the Allied forces and fighting for freedom.
Mr. Prime Minister, as a dual citizen of both America and the Republic of Ireland, what do you think are the chances of unification by the 100th anniversary of the Easter Rising?
You mean reunification of the island of Ireland? Yes. It won't happen by then. But I do see a time when that will happen. Clearly, the platform where we stand on now comes from what we call the Good Friday Agreement, in which the United States had a particular part to play, and the special envoy of the United States appointed by President Clinton, George Mitchell, spent a very long period in very complex and difficult negotiations in Northern Ireland, bringing about that situation, helped indeed by governments, both from Ireland and from Britain, in putting it in place. But this very day, the 12th of October, sees one element of that particular agreement actually become a reality, when politicians from Northern Ireland and politicians from the Republic actually sit down in Dublin this very day to talk about issues of common interest, cross-border activities and so on. That's following on a decision that's been in place for some time now, where ministers from my own government and ministers from the Executive Assembly in Northern Ireland meet in a North-South Ministerial Council and talk about issues of, trans-border health, education, transport, the Common Agricultural Policy, and so on. So the economic island of Ireland is very much of interest to both governments. The corporation tax rate in the Republic is 12.5%. It's very much higher in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland uses sterling. The Chancellery and the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the British government, together with the Executive in Northern Ireland, are looking at the question of reducing the corporate tax rate to the same level as that of the Republic, which would then, in an island sense, make it an island for foreign direct investment with an equal rate of corporate tax rate. But also the issues that apply in the European Union are of importance to Northern Ireland as they are to us in the Republic. Now, Britain, as you know, uses sterling. We're in the Eurozone. We assume the presidency on the 1st of January. We've actually allocated personnel from the Northern Ireland office to our permanent representation in Brussels so that they'll be properly and fully informed as to what's happening. I chair the North-South Ministerial Council myself. We supply assistance in terms of transport, road development, hospital facilities, educational facilities in a cooperative way with the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. I think it's also important to say that of fundamental importance here is the peace that reigns on the streets. And while communities may have very different views and have different traditions, it's important that we understand that the priority importance is keeping peace on the street and at the same time providing opportunities for young people to have job opportunities where that can be explored. And that's the critical issue. And I have to say that while some dissident efforts have been there to destroy that peace, the level of cooperation between the Garda Síochána in the Republic and the PSNI in Northern Ireland is at a very, very high level, and great cooperation exists there. I signed a strategic partnership agreement with Prime Minister Cameron in Downing Street earlier on this year. We're actively working on a memorandum of understanding at the moment about the opportunities that exist for Ireland to sell renewable energy from wind and wave, in our case, directly into the British market, and we hope that that can reach a conclusion sometime before the end of the year. 45,000 people sit on the boards of British companies. The level of cooperation is very strong. In the sporting sense, sports people from Northern Ireland participate in the Irish jersey, be it on the rugby team or the boxing teams. Clearly, in the sense of tourism as a cross-border activity, it's extraordinarily important in terms of visitors coming to the island of Ireland. The same applies in the case of Derry next year, being the city of culture, and also the city which will host the great Irish traditional music festival that we call Fleadh na hÉireann. So these things are all moving in the right direction. The question of unity is one that's enshrined in the Good Friday Agreement, which would require a referendum of the people north and of the people south on the same day at some future point. For us now, it's about development of the economy, job opportunities, sharing of facilities, sharing of experience and talent, and moving on with the development of the island of Ireland. And that's where our focus is for the moment.
Hello, Taoiseach Kenny. My name is Bridget Power Barber. Kathleen Fox is my sister. And I'd like to thank you for mentioning her and my nephew, Dan Fox, from St. Ignatius High School, who plays for the University of Notre Dame. You mentioned my sister's name and my family's name at the rally the night before the Notre Dame game, and I wanted to thank you for that. But in addition, when we were in Ireland, we were in County Waterford, and we work in the disability service industry. And we did tour an agency by the name of Carly's Services that is directed by Vincent O'Flynn. And I wondered what kind of services are offered in the country of Ireland for children and adults with disabilities, specifically autism.
Well, this is an area that's of exceptional sensitivity and personal importance to so many people. The situation in Ireland is one that is always challenging in terms of the structures of the whole health area and how public monies can be spent to best effect to deliver services for people who need them, including those with physical disabilities or those who have intellectual challenges, including those somewhere on the autistic spectrum. Nobody knows a child better than its mother. And as somebody who's served a long time in public life, I meet people who say, the service for this child should be service X or Y. That might not be in accordance, in the case of an autistic child, with the understanding of the child's mother given the circumstances that apply every day. So it's a case on the autistic spectrum of being able to determine what is best for each individual child, because they are all individual, and how best that service might be provided. We never have enough resources to pump into the disability sector or the area where intellectual challenge applies, or indeed have never been able to provide the resources for an increasing number of new determinations of challenges that people face. So it's one where the government appointed a specific ministry to look at these areas, and in the area of mental health alone, ring-fenced particular monies to be spent exclusively and only in those areas, including autism. So in that sense, we've made progress, but we're not where I'd like to be, and I do hope that when we can get our economy rectified and growing strongly again, that's an area that will continue to receive specific focus from government, because for those who have no voice, or those who, depending on the range of the challenge that they face, cannot speak for themselves, then it's the responsibility of government to see that those who look after them are given the facilities and the resources to do that as one would expect.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to have you. I found a lot of hope in your talk, and I'm looking at a table of young adults from Ackle Island, and I hope they found as much hope in your talk as well. I have two questions, or rather, I wonder if you can lend my city, Cleveland, and Cuyahoga County, and our country some advice on two parts. One is Ireland has been a leader on the environmental impact and reducing your environmental impact, specifically in reducing plastic bags use in the grocery stores, and how we can start to implement that here in Cleveland and be a leader across the country, along with your trade. Fair trade Ireland has been a leader in fair trade in the world, and how to bring that human dignity and human respect when we are talking trade policies.
A woman wrote to me one time from California, and she said, I visited your country, and I drove actually from Belfast to Cork. And she said the funny thing was that, unfortunately, every place I travelled where there were hawthorn bushes, you seemed to have flags waving at me. These were plastic bags. So the government of the day made a right decision to introduce a tax on plastic bags, and that phenomenon has disappeared. People have returned to the older method of the bigger bags that are reusable for their shopping when they go to the shopping centres and so on, and that's something that we welcome greatly. That tax was very beneficial in cleaning up the country and in beginning the understanding of people that you just can't destroy your environment. There's a very strong voluntary series of groups in Ireland dealing with the tidy towns and tidy communities, who go out every day in so many cases, and they compete very strongly for the national awards each year: tidy town, tidy village, tidy small town, big town, and so on. And really, people are encouraged, to improve their lot. Fair trade is something that's endemic in us in Ireland, long known as the island of saints and scholars, sending out educators and missionaries. The tragedy of the Great Hunger in the mid-1840s has left us as a position, and that as a small country, we've made a disproportionate impact on dealing with third world and developing countries less fortunate than ourselves. I was in a school in the West recently. They formed primary school, children up to the age of 10 or 11. They formed their group with a township school in Stellenbosch in South Africa, where they now talk to each other and want to get involved in providing facilities that Ireland can provide for those children who are less fortunate than ours are. Young girl with the Junior Chamber of Ireland raised 80,000 recently for a township in Kenya herself, because she believed in that. I spoke to my own niece who went to Calcutta. The impact of working with those who have nothing but the space they lie in is extraordinary in young people. And so fair trade is something that Ireland supports very strongly, and it's something that is keenly sought after by people who are discerning shoppers when they go to buy. That's something that, when you look at the Irish overseas aid budget, 20% of ours, one of the few countries in the world who reaches that level, is actually focused on hunger eradication, on malnutrition, and in undernutrition. In many countries in the world, there are Irish volunteers working with different NGOs in those spheres, and that's something that will not be changed from our perspective. Hi, I'm finished. He says I'm finished.
Today we are listening to a Friday forum featuring the Prime Minister of Ireland, Taoiseach Enda Kenny. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for joining us today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.